Hey guys, Rick Stone here from Stoney Acres Gardening. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about some things that you can be doing out in your garden in February if you live in zones 5, 6, and 7. Now, a lot of what I'm going to be talking about today will be very much weather dependent. We're having a very mild winter this year compared to last year. This time last year we had 2 feet of snow on the ground. This year, nothing. It's all been rain for most of the winter. We have had some snow, but mostly rain. So what I'm going to tell you today will very much depend on what your weather is like in your location. And obviously those of you that live in colder areas will be doing these things later in the month of February. And for those of us that are having a mild winter, we can get things done in the middle and late February as well. So there's quite a bit that we can do. And number one on the list has to do with our fruit trees. So it could be time for you to start thinking about pruning your fruit trees. Normally we want to prune fruit trees while they're still dormant in late winter or early spring. So late winter, early spring, that's the end of February. And so it's time to start thinking about getting out and pruning your fruit trees. You're going to want to start with your apple trees and your pear trees, then later on move on to your stone fruit. So things like your peaches, your apricots, your cherries, your nectarines, plums, those will come a little bit later. But it's time to start thinking about that pruning. And again, very much weather dependent. If it looks like you're done with the single digits, then it may be time for you to actually get out and do a little pruning. Next on the list is another pruning task, and that is your berries. So I'm here in front of my raspberries and my blackberry patch, and it is time to start thinking about those as well. So again, if your weather moderates, you've got some time that you can actually get out in the garden, things have dried out enough that you can walk on the soil, you can actually get out and start working on pruning your raspberries, your blackberries, possibly even your blueberries and currants and other berries. You can actually start working on those during the month of February. So that's your second pruning task for this month. Number 3 on your list is actually to do a little bit of planting. So if you have some cold frames or hoop houses that are part of your garden, you can actually get out and do a little bit of planting if you've got the space in your cold frames. So for example, we have 3 different cold frames that we have here in our garden. One of them is still full of carrots, and we're still harvesting from that one. Another one is completely empty, and so I've taken the lids off so that we got plenty of water and rain in on that bed. And then the last one is this one here, which was a lettuce bed and had a lot of lettuce in it all through the winter, but we harvested the last of the lettuce just a week or so ago. We've got just a little bit of tot soy left in here, and that's it. And so now it's time to actually get these 2 cold frames replanted. So I've got some seedlings that I started back in December, lettuce, some kale, some tot soy again, and we're going to put those into this cold frame. And in the cold frame here in the middle, we're going to plant 2 spinach. And then we're going to put those lids back on, and we'll go ahead and get an early start on some spring planting here in these cold frames. Next, we're going to look at just a little bit of general cleanup in our garden. So time, if again we can get out and actually walk in the garden, then it could be time for you to do a little raking, clean up any piles of leaves or things that you missed in the fall, clean up any other dead plants that happen to be hanging around, get those in your compost bin, and kind of just do a general clean. Maybe if the weather is right, you might give your lawn a little bit of a trim. That could be beneficial for your compost bin early on. And but just kind of do a general overall cleanup of your garden, kind of get those tasks started now so you don't have to worry about them when planting time comes in a month or 2. Next on our list is compost. It's time to take a look at your highly neglected, if it's anything like mine, compost piles. So I actually have 2 active piles. This bin right here is just leaves and debris that I collected last fall that we'll be using throughout the summer to mix into our compost. But this bin right here is actually an active pile that I was working on in the fall. I got it up to temperature and kept it up for about 3 weeks. So it should be in pretty good shape. But I had a back injury last fall. I didn't really get around to doing kind of a final turn on it. And so I may or may not have good compost in here. So I need to kind of dig down, see if I've got some good compost, remove the stuff that I haven't been able to get composted, put it into the next bin, sift out the compost good, and get that ready for use. And If it turns out that it's not ready, then I need to do some turning and maybe add some more material to it so that I can get this bin fired up and ready to go. Then we've got this bin over here that is just basically a compilation of the debris that we collected from our garden. The last couple of times we mowed the lawn, we put it in here, and then all winter long, as you can see, we have been adding food scraps to it. A lot of banana peels, a lot of potato peels and avocados, and there's a lot of stuff here that I need to kind of get fired up. This process hasn't really started, so we're going to turn this and then we're going to start adding material to this compost bin to start getting things fired up, ready to go, so that this bin we can finish it off in the spring and get it cooking so that we've got a batch going for summer. So this one hopefully we'll be able to put in late spring. This one we're hoping to be able to put into the garden beds in the summertime. So get those long neglected compost piles, and I do it too. I get lazy in the wintertime, and so you probably haven't been doing much other than adding food scraps to it. Let's get those turned and ready to go so that they're fired up and we can actually get moving forward with our compost as the weather starts to warm up. The next task on our list also has to do with compost, and that is adding some compost to your garden beds. Now, normally I would like to do this in the fall, but I had a back injury in the fall, just did not feel like getting out there with a shovel and a wheelbarrow and putting compost into my fall garden beds, and so I am actually going to be doing that this spring. Weather is really moderate right now. We're in the 40s, and the garden is starting to dry out a little bit. The ground is frozen still, but not at the surface. And all I'm going to do is just take a couple of inches of compost and work that into the surface of the soil. Why not do it now in February so that I don't have to mess with it in March and April when I'm trying to get out here and get planting done? So adding compost to your garden beds, if the soil is workable, it can't be wet. We don't want a wet bed where we're working compost in. That's not good for the soil. But if you've got a dry soil bed, you could definitely add your compost during the month of February. Next, it's time to deal with our containers. So there's no reason at all that you can't be working with your containers during the month of February. So bring those inside to your garage, set them out on your porch so that things kind of thaw out, and let's go ahead and get all of our containers amended and ready for planting so that we're not having to mess with that before we are getting ready to plant. So go ahead, get that soil warmed up, add some compost, add some dry organic fertilizer to it, and let's freshen up and get our containers ready for planting this spring. So no reason at all that you can't, even weather related, that you can't get that done. Just bring those inside so they thaw out a little bit and start working with that soil so that we're adding those nutrients back in and getting them ready for planting. Another thing that you can do that doesn't require you being outside in the cold is get your seedlings started. So February is the prime time for getting a lot of your cool season crops started indoors in your seed starting setup. So here we're talking about things like your brassica family plants, leafy greens, celery. All of those cool season crops can be started in February, and a lot of them really need to be started in February. If you'd like to learn a little bit more about that, I actually have a link right up here to a video I just did about a week ago on what we should be planting indoors in February. That'll give you a lot more details, but there is definitely seed starting that needs to be done during the month of February. Last but not least on our list, we can come inside for a little while. Get out of the wind and let's spend a little time giving some love to our tools. So it is time to go ahead and get our pruners sharpened, both our big and our little pruners, any saws that you have, anything like that. Also, you might be time to consider if you need to sharpen your shovels as well. Those benefit from a good sharpening. Time to take the blade off of your lawnmower and get that sharpened up so that it's ready to go. All of those different tasks, I actually have a separate video that you can take a look at. Right up here, if you click on that link, you can go over and we talk about how to sharpen those tools using a rasp and to get those tools in good shape for the upcoming season. All All right, so that's my list of things that I am going to try and get done this February out in my garden. Now, I completely recognize that for some of you, most of these tasks are going to be impossible to do. You might still have 2 feet of snow on your garden like I did last year, and so maybe you're not going to be able to take care of that. But I definitely wanted to make sure that these are on your radar. These are things that you can think about. You know, if you've got some time between storms that your garden's going to dry out, then you could definitely go out and get a head start on some of these garden tasks so that you're not having to mess with them. It feels like in the spring that we always just have this big surge of things that we have to get done. And so if you can get some of that done here in late winter, then that's fewer things that you have to worry about. That helps you to make sure you get your garden planted on time and get things taken care of. So make sure that you try and get as much of this done as weather allows here in your garden this February. All right, before we finish up, I did want to take just a quick second to invite those of you that haven't already joined to join us over at the Gardening Academy. The Gardening Academy is the place where I help grow better gardeners. And I would love to have you come and let me teach you a little bit more about gardening. We have just a great program over there. We do monthly Q&A sessions. We have monthly planting guides. Every month we have some type of new mini course or expert interview. On top of that, we have about 40 other courses that you can learn from, topics that just cover the whole gamut from basic gardening to how to grow raspberries. Just a lot of great stuff over there in the Gardening Academy. So I'd love to have you join us. There's a link down in the description of this video you can click on to come over and learn more. But I would love to have you join us in the Gardening Academy. Okay, that's all I have for you for this week. Everybody have a fantastic week. Happy gardening.